Amrad. I'm the finance chair. This is a joint meeting of finance and public safety. So the co-chair here is Councilor Cholmajuk. So welcome. And we have Councilor Molly McGuire-Hogan.
Yeah, that's right.
And Joe Councilor Driscoll, President Hudson, and a bunch of folks from the fire department. Would you like to introduce yourselves quickly?
Yes, I'm Steve Evans. I'm the first Deputy Chief of Fire. We have Diane Nastry. She's our fiscal officer. And District Chief Zach Smith. He's a district chief in charge of down at maintenance.
So I would just add, we have an item in front of the council now to purchase trucks, which I think is, who has the dollar amount memorized? Is it
1480?
It's like is it like 3 million total for all of them? 3.7
total.
So it's basically your entire 2020-21 capital budget, which is a little different than DPW did earlier in the day. They were getting $2 million worth of their $10 million plan. So it was like a fraction of their plan, whereas this is really like your one big purchase of the year. So I was thinking for this, we can go through, it really is a presentation of your entire capital plan for the year. And we also had just been given by the budget director the 6-year updated capital plan, which is actually a requirement that we have to be given it before we're able to spend the money in the next budget year like we're about to do. So the purpose of the capital plan is to identify capital needs, set priorities among these competing needs, because we probably won't be able to fund all of them, plan specific initiatives to address these priorities, estimate the cost of these initiatives, and then suggest likely sources for the funds. So from my perspective, one thing we don't always do is we don't always list our full need because we're focused on what we have available to pay. So that's one area where I think we can improve to say what the fire department actually needs is over the next 6 years would be this much. Roughly you guys get like $3 million a year for capital, it seems like. But roughly it fluctuates up or down a little bit. But I think it would help to just have and I think you share this with like the mayor in some sense asking for what they get, but I think we should have it documented in a way that says like the true need of the fire is this, and then prioritize them. So and based on the money we have, we're actually going ahead with this. And then in theory, if one of the needs that didn't reach the threshold gets bumped up as a higher priority, then it all makes sense. We're like, oh, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was kind of like in the needs, and then it just bumped up so that it all makes a little more sense. And I had talked to Diane about this before, because Diane is the person who I find most responsive to a bunch of the stuff I ask and really good. So I don't know if you have, I'm open. Do you want to say anything before we let them? Do you want to like summarize your plan or describe or you can describe the immediate ask, whichever you feel most comfortable with, really.
For the 3.7, we're requesting for 2 aerial towers, and we are going to refurbish 2 engines. We did have an original ask, and it, like we talked, we kind of prioritize, and this is what we feel is the most important. If we can get nothing else, this is what we require.
So, for instance, fire in the new plan for 2021 is asking for the 3.7 million roughly, and in the capital plan a year ago for the same year for 2021 it was 2.3, so it went up by 1.5. So I was curious, how does that relate to, for instance, also if you look at the previous year's plan, fire, and I guess what's ironically the current year, but like last year's version of what we're talking about, was 3.2 million. So do we expect to spend the full 3.2 million, or does like a portion of the
full 3.7? We do anticipate spending that.
I think
the 2.
1920.
Oh, for the 19.
So for 1920, which is the current capital plan, because it's like we're speeding up here and we're spending next year's money now.
I get what you're saying.
So of the current year,
with the bonded money, I think there's two parts to this. We're speeding up because for the bonded money, we are typically able to access this not access it in January, but create a project because it takes so long for these apparatuses to be created. With regards to the 1920 capital plan, we looked at that today. Well, we look at it periodically, but today, as of today, we have about 7% remaining available. That's not including the AFG grant that we didn't get. So that's $781,000 that's still remaining on a project if you look at what's in PeopleSoft. I don't know if you guys access that, but.
700,000 AFG. Yeah. That's like a definitive not get, or it's
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a grant that we applied for that we did not get. And also, these apparatus are going to arrive next spring. So
right, I know. I know there's a big delay, and you buy them, and they
spring if we're lucky,
make them or whatever happens. I'm not so. I think that's probably fine. I just want to make sure the narrative and everything matches. So it was 3.2 million. So we didn't get the 700,000. So that's 2.5 million. So you're saying we spent 93% of the 2.5 million
Either
so far?
encumbered or spent.
Okay.
So.
Okay, that's fine. So then how does? So we're going to spend most of the money last year. So it's not like we had projects that we didn't do that were rolling forward or anything like that. But the out year value in the plan was 2.3 million, and now for this year we bump up to the 3.7, so we went up by 1.5. How does that happen? Is that like?
So we really took a look at what our departments need. We look at it every year, what our department needs are, and I think we're really taking a closer look and scrutinizing what projects need to be addressed. And I think you guys all heard Chief Mon speak about how our spares are really in need of either repair or it's, I think I would want to let you speak more on that. But we adjusted the game plan. We did adjust it from last year. I know that last year we had, vehicles included and a rescue boat included, and those have been eliminated. And now this year we're just really focusing on getting our apparatus back up to where it should be. Does that help explain? And then so that adjusts your pricing. You're buying different items.
So for instance, in the 2020-21 plan a year ago, we had the 2.3 million, but we had 4 categories of expenses.
Okay.
Being like miscellaneous emergency station repairs, 100 grand. Station emergency generator replacement, 70,000. Major fire apparatus replacement, that 1.75. So it sounds like we're definitely still doing that. And then fire vehicles, there were 369,000. So it seems like we've gotten rid of most of those items except for the major fire apparatus, and then we've doubled down on that part.
Yeah.
So what happens to the things that we articulated? Do they show up in the next years? Are they like part of the plan in?
Yeah, the generator replacement and fire station rehab.
So like
They
those,
get pushed down the road. They're getting pushed down.
because it just looks, when I look at 21, 22 in the current plan, which is the next year out, like if you were to push it there, they don't seem to, miscellaneous station repairs.
So
Like they unless they're just, they don't seem to be listed in the same way. So they kind of
they
fall
are.
out.
This is an adjustment we made. So in the past, we would always get 100 grand to maintain our fire stations from the 70s in our capital and 100 grand in our operating. This year, instead of just saying, give us 100 grand and we're going to repair things, that we're looking at projects that we need. I know we need a new wall in Station 18. We need window replacements. Generator replacement program is almost done. That's something we were tackling each year. I believe each year we were replacing roofs on these old buildings, and among other things that I don't want to pick on these buildings. I know they do a good job housing our firefighters, but we just need general maintenance.
Well, I guess with no judgment toward how you prioritize, because you know the priorities and I don't, but just it does seem like certain things that we thought at some point would be priorities fall kind of off the list. And I just think we should have some way to articulate that they haven't disappeared, but we're unable to fund them at the moment or something like that. So it's almost like, and this is not all only on fire, this is like the way the city does this capital plan. So I would say like every department should do this, but there should be some way to articulate the needs that you have at some point identified, but that you're unable to actually pay for, so that we can, because I truly do believe there will probably be a moment where the economy dips and there will be opportunities to get all types of like public infrastructure and capital investments either subsidized or paid for by the federal government or whoever, like in a stimulus program, kind of like it was in 2008, 2009. So that's why I would always want something formally documenting like, oh, this is what we really truly did need. We didn't ever not need this, we just couldn't afford it. And now that there's an opportunity to pay for it, look, we've like got this plan, and it shows. Because I can understand why it would be alarming for like people to say, hey, look, we have all these needs that we're unable to pay for. But I still think it's more responsible to say we have all these needs that we're not able to pay for than to ignore the needs completely.
Yeah. We have several firehouses, as mentioned, that are older than many of the members here, and we have a list that
Really? A couple of us.
most of the we do have a list, and we're constantly prioritizing different projects to based on safety, based on if we leave this and push it off 3 years, will it cause a bigger problem down the road, or will it just be something we have to deal with 3 years later, as opposed to something we do right now, such as replacing apparatus,
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume you guys absolutely have like notes or a list of things that you do want done. I guess it's just Councilor Rudd's asking that it be actually documented in some sort of plan that we've got.
Certainly
But I have to imagine you've got a laundry list of
we
things
do.
that you'd
We
like to do and would like to get,
Yes.
but just don't have it
Yes.
for us or the general public
Yeah.
to see.
But it matters because, like with the trucks, people will be like, oh, well, we needed the trucks and we just didn't buy the trucks for a very long time. But until that moment where it's like, oh, now we need to buy 10 trucks or 5 trucks or whatever it is, people are kind of in this state of ignorant bliss where they're not thinking about, oh, we should be buying a truck and aren't. And I think it becomes easier to buy the 5 trucks at that moment where you can no longer defer it, when for the 3 years before you said, we need the trucks, but we still can't afford them.
Seen it on a list, but it didn't have an allocation attached to it. That's what you're saying.
Right, and that's the part that doesn't happen now. Like, you could almost be like, here are the needs, and then it becomes like a more clear prioritization, so that it's not like some need popped up out of nowhere. It just happened to pop up above the threshold that needed to get, and then something else drops below. But then we're still seeing what is in the pipeline.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you this, so with moving the trucks up to being a priority, all of the other needs that you said that were on the list, so there's no danger or anything with moving the apparatus at the top of the list?
Apparatus is, other than our human resources, is one of our most vital pieces of equipment, and we prioritize every month as to what is most important to keep our firefighters safe, the community safe, and then we work down from there. And for instance, a new windows at Station 9, although they are the same windows since 1972 and half of them don't open, they still become a low priority when we need to purchase apparatus, and I guess that's why we're
But
here
as
now.
far as the generator work, you said you were almost done with that. So I mean, we won't see the generators go out in Station 8 because we didn't finish the generator work.
There will be power at Station 8 because we replaced all the old diesel generators with natural gas modern generators and the old ones were basically old diesel truck engine type
I
things.
just want to ensure that we're not going to neglect one thing. I mean, I know the apparatus is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Safety is first. Fire trucks are needed.
Yeah.
I know they move all day, all night long, but I just want to ensure that the fellas and girls in the firehouse don't have to get up in the dark trying to run to the fire truck.
Especially in 9s, because they report to my house.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I understand your point, and we are constantly looking at that, and it kind of, it evolves as time goes as to what our priorities are. We're not looking for new apparatus to run them in parades. We're looking for apparatus because the modern apparatus keep our firefighters safe, and more importantly, keep the member or the community safe.
And I just want to ask this question because I think that all of our goals are the same as what Councilor Rudd is saying. So at this point, moving forward, we'll be able to not have to come back, right? I mean, I know we're playing catch up, but at some point, instead of coming and saying, oh, we need 4 trucks, at some point it'll be, well, we need to get 1 this year, 1 next year, maybe 2. That's where we're headed, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Our ideal purchase is 1 year we purchase 2 engines. The next year we purchase a truck, and that is the pattern that if it was followed through the last
Administration, I'll say it for you.
several years,
Yeah.
we wouldn't be
Previous
sitting here right
administration.
now. But our goal, and this
I'll beat
was
the truck. Okay.
Chief Mont's
said it
goal
last
from
meeting.
day one, was to get to a point where we could order 2 engines this year, one truck the next. And then I believe it's every several years we order a new rescue or a new hazmat or something of that nature. But that is our goal, and it just keeps going on.
How far away are we?
I believe, I would say within this year, Zach, do you have as far as getting into that plan?
How close are we to that?
Yes.
plan?
Yeah.
We were actually very close to that plan. If we come up with the 2 aerials and the 2 engines this year, then we're about 2 years away from getting into the next year. After that, we're asking for the 875. That's the price for 2 new engines. The next year, you'll see 2 aerial towers.
Yep.
And then, boom, in the 23-24 plan,
Yep.
2 engines.
Yes.
24, 25, 1 aerial truck. So
Did. I was doing that while he was explaining it, and I was like, oh, you did do it.
when
Nice
Chief
job.
Road said crossroads, like we are there.
Right.
We just need to get through it.
So that's the kind of thing that I want to see that makes sense. Like the thing you're saying actually is reflected in the numbers, which is good because I don't think that always happens in every department. So good.
I guess I guess my question is more of a curiosity. I understand that there's a plan to replace all the aerial and apparatus, but why this year? Is what going to be done next year or this year? Is there just out of curiosity?
We're at a point, and I brought a list of apparatus, if I may.
Yeah.
The engines are on the front. The trucks, the ladder trucks are on the second sheet. Thank you.
I think I might got one more. Give me another one.
This was updated.
Okay.
You'll see
Thanks,
those
Chief.
numbers have changed in a very short time. If you look at one thing about apparatus is it's more so about the engine hours than it is about the mileage, and Zach can talk a little bit more about that, about where each of these apparatus are in their lifespan, and the fact of the matter is there's several apparatus on this page that we use for training only, that we use as a sparingly until we could get that front line back in service. And we've been putting Band-Aids and we've been making it work, and to the maintenance division's credit, they've made old equipment run safely and effectively for our 2 years and much more than that. But we're at a point where we've kind of pushed it down the road too far for too long, and we're at this point where we either need to make a purchase, or we're going to at some point, hopefully not, but it might be next month, it might be 2 years from now, where we can't get a part of an apparatus that they no longer make. We have 3 or 4 apparatus on here where the manufacturer folded. They went out of business, and when a part is needed, they get on the phone and they find a a new or slightly used part from places where you wouldn't normally find a part. And we're to the point where we're running out of tricks and solutions, and we just want to make sure that we solve this problem before it really is a big problem.
So you're saying that at this point they are no longer they are not in a position of a want, they are in a position of a need.
Absolutely. That is exactly what I'm saying.
So Chief, I mean, how many calls do you guys go a year? I can't.
What was the last, Barry, what was the last year's number? 20,000?
20,000, and you respond to almost everything. And you know, I obviously city. Chief Smith probably knows that. I mean, city driving is rugged driving as far as, you know. It's not like Lafayette Volunteer Fire Department, you know, going up and down roads. You guys are, you know, rounding corners, avoiding cars. I mean, especially up on Tipperary Hill, where it's double parked all the time and all
Or
that.
State Street.
Yeah, I mean everything. So you know,
It's the nature of where we live.
I know, and it's amazing what you do. I mean, and you know, you're one of those departments that you're always there when you need them. In fact, I needed you guys a couple of years ago, and you were there in 35 seconds. You know, saved my house. So I'm just wondering, when you say refurbish an engine, what do you mean refurbish? I mean, what? I mean, obviously they're all different, right? Depending on what it is.
I'll pour it over.
Zach is a bit of a
Expert? No,
rocket scientist, I would say. He went to school for it, and he's got all the.
Okay. Now, when I ask rockets, like, can we have a little time limit here? Like maybe about 5 minutes?
I'll try not to get too technical.
Go get him, Zach.
So the easiest way to explain this is you hit the nail on the head. The roads and the wear and tear on the vehicles comes from the chassis. That's the part of the vehicle that carries the rest of it, whether it's a pumper or a truck or whatever it does. The wheels, the transmission, axles, engines, that's what takes the beating. So when we say refurbish, we're replacing that piece of the unit, which in this case also happens to be the American LaFrances that went out of business, that are difficult to find parts for. We're removing that part of the vehicle, putting a completely brand new piece underneath the existing vehicle, which just happens to be stainless steel, which I don't think I have to explain that to anybody. So we're using the stainless steel body, the stainless steel around the pump, the part that moves the water, and anything above the salt line we're keeping that's not stainless. Anything below the salt line is being replaced, which is pretty much the chassis. So when we say refurbishment, it's actually a brand new chassis, and we're using stainless steel components that are completely viable, and we're replacing all the wiring, the lights. So when it comes back, if I didn't tell you it was refurbished, if I took it and put it in a show or a parade, people would never know that this vehicle is actually 20 years old because the chassis is completely new.
And they certify it, and then you guys look it over when it gets there and all that?
There's an entirely separate NFPA standard for refurbishment, and they pretty much hold themselves to the original build anyways. So when we receive the vehicle, the warranties are as new, the life expectancy of the vehicle is as new. We're just using the components we can reuse, which is basically the stainless, honestly, and saving money and getting as new vehicle. Like I said, if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know. This vehicle is not brand new.
And when you when you do anything in your firehouses or anything else, you avail yourselves of the other city departments to help you out a little bit? Do you have like a clerk of the works, like with roofers or anything? You mentioned the roofs, or do you just RFP those?
We use city trades, and we do have our own plumber and electrician that works for the fire department. Fire department. We'll use them if it's a bigger project. City trades comes in and gives us a hand. Obviously, with a roof, we don't have the manpower to do a roof. But if I have a roof leak or I have a bad outlet, I can take care of the day to day. Everybody has a house and lives in it. You know what happens, but our firehouses are all year round, and they're always occupied. There's always guys in those places, and it just wears these places down.
Literally a 24-hour operation, of course.
Unfortunately, with the apparatus and the firehouses, you can't understate the fact that they're constantly in use.
Okay, because when you look over this thing, and obviously my other councils did, I mean, there's giant gaps where you didn't get any kind of new equipment, and as far as, I don't know if anybody can speak to the insurance decision. I mean, as far as like how we're insured and all that. I mean, as far as the fire department, as far as the city is rated because of the fire department.
Sure. There's an insurance rating, just to be very basic about it. It's called an ISO rating. And we are, and we have been for years, an ISO rated 1. which is the best in the country. There's very few in the country that have that rating, and that is one of the things that determine what the average homeowner pays for homeowners insurance, for different, fire protection insurance, things of that nature. And ours being a 1, which is, again, the best in the country, it helps with their rates and keeps the rates low for everybody.
So obviously, this is well-spent money by the city of Syracuse that directly helps the city taxpayers, because
Yes, sir.
obviously it lowers their insurance rates.
Apparatus and apparatus response is one of many, but one of the bigger aspects of how they rate that ISO rating. It's water supply, response time, apparatus, what equipment they have on those apparatus, and they all play a factor. But definitely, if we can't respond in a timely fashion, it's going to potentially affect that ISO rating.
And what I've always been amazed about the fire department is people think that you just fight fires or, respond to like serious incidences where somebody needs help. But I used to work with Paul Reeves when I was with the City Parks Department doing special events, and how the focus on safety at all those special events and all the restaurants in the city and everything else that the fire department does.
Yes,
It's
sir.
really amazing. So
Yes, sir.
And can I ask a question?
Yes,
Because I'm gonna go back a little bit. Because I know in the city of Syracuse, we have a lot of new build going on. And a lot of new build is taller and higher than previous build. So what is some of these aerials are gonna be used for that purpose because they'll go up higher than the ones we had, correct?
Well, we have the 95-foot aerial bucket trucks that we utilize. They're the apparatus that we use for our trucks. We also have a specialty ladder truck that we purchased recently. We had what was our?
That was the last one that we approved, right?
Yeah, it was a ladder
Yes,
4.
it was the ladder truck. 100
that in action at Lincoln.
What's that?
You got to see it in action at Lincoln.
Yes.
Testing out the hose.
But taller buildings are built to a different specification, right? So they have like different types of steel or of stairwells and sprinkler systems and all of that. So in
Yes.
theory, you don't need a ladder that reaches the tallest building in the city.
You
'cause
might.
that's-
I got a senior mother, and I'm in one of them buildings, and they may have to go in the window and get her.
Yep. There are definitely limitations as to the height. I mean, we can reach, 10, 11, 12th floor on occasion, but anything above that, we have plans. We have there's standpipe systems that we got it covered, even though an apparatus might not be able to reach it.
And then I want to add on another thing, then I'm going to be quiet. But I know for a fact, because I've seen you in action on this, because we're talking about, even the apparatus, even the fire trucks, because I watched you use them in a situation where somebody was in the creek, in the lake. And I watched the interaction with the trucks coming to the creek to put the ladder down to try to get this woman out the lake. I was fascinated. And then you had I got to talk a little bit. Then they had them little men in the little wetsuits, and they dived in. Oh God, it was fun. But I saw all of that, so I was very fascinated by some of that because it was the bomb. They got her out too. He pushed her in, but they got her out. Okay.
I agree.
next time that happens, maybe President, if you could notify President Hudson,
We'll give you a pager, especially and you could just cheer while we.
I want to switch gears a little bit. Maybe it might be different from what we are saying. I saw that there was a waiver for our request for a waiver for these,
Yes.
right? I guess the reason I'm asking that is that as leaders we are accountable to the public. They want to see transparency and all. Is it why wasn't there any RFP released for these things?
I'm going to defer to Zach on this. He's the expert.
This is actually not the first time I've been in front of the Common Council on this subject. The reason we use the waiver is because Sutphen is the only vehicle that will do what we need it to do, and we've used it since 1972-73. There's a training aspect. All our firemen use it. there's a maintenance aspect. I've got parts on shelves ready to go. I know, not only do I know how to fix it, I have the parts to be able to fix it in a timely fashion. Everything we do in the firematic side, like talk about the firemen know how to use it. I can send these guys a spare Sutphen, and they're coming out of one. So there's the trainability, the operability issues, and then from my side, the maintenance issues. And not to mention what the vehicle can do with all the ground letters it can carry, and as much aerial device as it has, the 95 foot, there's nothing else out there that can do what this vehicle does. On top of the fact, with the way we use it and the way it's integrated into the system, for us, it would be very difficult to replace, and actually no other manufacturer could replace this vehicle. You could go out for a quote, and you're going to come back with vehicles that can do 3/4 of what the Sutphens can currently do.
So in essence, we are limited by the fact that there's only one company that can do this, right? So
they're the one company that can build specifically what we use. So when a fire apparatus shows up in front of a structure, the driver and everyone on that scene that is going to be touching anything on that apparatus need to know that it's all the same. It's like a heart surgeon with his piece of equipment. You don't want a heart surgeon using whatever came up on bid, or different pieces of equipment for different surgeries. You want him to be an expert with that piece of equipment, and the same is true with a fire apparatus. You want everything that anybody touches to be in the exact same spot, because every second counts. If someone's going to push a button, we want to make sure that button does what they think it's going to do, instead of I push this button when really I meant to push this one, because on the apparatus where I sometimes work at Station 9, the button's over here, and that's one aspect. And things, I think Chief Mons brought up the ladder configuration in the previous meeting. There are no apparatus providers that can provide us with the amount of ground ladders at what configuration we need them, other than this current manufacturer. And we do a lot of 1 and 2 family residents. That is our thing. If you go down to New York City, they hit high rises, low rises all the time with structure fires. Our bread and butter is the 2.5-story wood frame. And when we have a structure fire at one of those houses, you'll see between 6, 8 ladders leaning up to windows, attic windows, under the roof, and those ladders all have to get there on our fire trucks, and that's one of the reasons why we specifically go to this manufacturer.
Well, I'm asking because, as a city that do not have a lot of money, and considering that the technology these days is advancing every time, I'm asking if considering that we've been using the same manufacturer for all this time, that I would hope that out there is something more efficient, more easier to train the crew how to use it, and to maybe save some money with better technology. I'm asking all of that because so how many years have we been using Sutphen?
The Sutphen, what was it? What year was it?
I believe the first one was delivered in 1973.
1970. Now, just to be clear, it is not the exact same piece of equipment.
Right.
In 1973, there was water in, water out, with some hose, not much more. If we had to, we could switch, but we found that for safety, for overall maintenance of the equipment, to have the same apparatus, to have 8 of the same apparatus pulling into the maintenance bay. We have parts on hand. We have expertise of how to fix that equipment. There are a lot of different aspects of why the Sutphen is best for us, but it's not this 1973 Sutphen. The basics of it is the same, but they have modernized is as much, if not more, than their competitors, because they know that it is a tight market, and they need to make sure that they're at the cutting edge of technology, so that we can trust in their equipment continued from 72 to 2022. So
Yeah, well, it's, with that, I mean, it's like, my grandfather's been driving a Lincoln since 1980.
Yeah.
The Lincoln that he drove in 1980 is not the same Lincoln that he's driving in 2019. But I guess my thing is because I've asked this before, because it's always a pet peeve of mine when we don't RFP for things, when we just, waive everything and go with someone. But I guess what's never really bothered me with fire specifically is the fact, or at least when we're talking about trucks and things like that, what would it cost us to then replace all of, I'd say, the utility closet of spare parts? I mean, I'm sure it's a warehouse or, but I mean, it would probably double what the taxpayers would have to foot the bill for to go through and say, okay, we're leaving Sutphen and we're going with, company B. And now we have to go not just buy the trucks, but we have to also make sure we have the spare parts on hand to have that. I mean, it always seemed to me that it would at least double whatever the RFP request would be. Whatever we're looking to get, it would double it, because you'd have to have all those parts on hand. Otherwise, we'd have a truck out of commission for however long it would take to ship the part.
And our mechanics would have to be trained on two apparatus. And I also want to be clear that we are constantly looking. Zach in our maintenance division, Chief Kane over there, they are constantly looking at the latest, greatest technology. And it's not that we're just, this is ours, you have us forever. We're constantly looking and we're constantly evaluating our needs. But to this point, up to this point, Sutphen has fulfilled our needs. And when we say something, it means something to them, and they take action.
So why, after all that, is there the one Spartan that was purchased in 2019 on that page? Is that just a different truck? That's not the same.
It's not the Sutphens are the mid-mount towers, which means that the aerial moves in the middle of the truck, the bucket hangs off the back. The Spartan is the rear mount ladder, which was a deviation, and the reason that is because they make a better ladder. So I think that little
That's
thing
like
there
the
shows
exception.
that we went with a better ladder.
Yeah, that is a different piece of equipment. It's the one up in your
very nice.
district that is it is an actual different piece of equipment, and it is a different function type vehicle.
So, Chief, how long you been fighting fires?
23 years.
23 years. I think I'd probably go with your expertise on something like this.
But can I piggyback, because I'm with Councilor Carney, I'm always big on RFPs, but I get it. But let me ask you this. So when you're talking about the Sutphens, if I'm hearing you right, Chief Evans, they're kind of built to us?
Yes.
To what we need, so
Yep.
they build them to what we need.
Yes, I would say that. I mean, we've been a customer of theirs for whatever it is, 40 years or close to it. When we want something, they do whatever they can to accommodate us, because they know we are their first customer. I believe the first, pretty close, that first truck, for that 95 foot, that we back then we were there first, and or at least at first in New York, possibly. I can't remember. I wasn't around then, but we work well with them, and
That's why I was wondering about the firehouses, because, I think I predate some of them.
But can I ask one more question?
Sure.
You know how, well, you don't know, but we talked about DPW. So DPW today, yesterday they came to us with a proposal for 10 trucks. So out of the 10 trucks, 5 of them are going to be reimbursed by the state. Is there something that you guys can look at for grants or state funding or anything to help us bring in some of this equipment?
we're constantly looking at grant opportunities. We did attempt to receive a grant on the last this year for an engine, and that did not fall through, but we are constantly looking. Zach, if you want to talk about that a little bit, or is that pretty much covered?
That covered.
We're constantly looking for free money. That's for sure.
Counselor, do you want to talk to, I would just see Dave over here, the finance. As far as bonding goes, you want to mention anything to him? We're okay as far as bonding goes on this, Dave? Okay.
The process, speak quickly, because the approval allows them to issue a purchase order so they can begin the production of that, of the fire trucks. We will not issue bonds probably till the spring, so we'll have the money in time to actually make the payment. That'll be the process. So the timing is perfect.
Okay.
That's great.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Now, this is a freshman question. I think the tallest building in the city is what? Is the State Tower or the money? Which one?
You're the tallest.
I'm the tallest building. Now, is it the state or the?
I'm not sure.
Okay, State Tower, right?
Yeah.
So these aerial that we are ordering are going to be able to. They are made to reach that level, right?
No,
If need be.
no, there's not an apparatus in the world that would do that. They will reach the, depending on how far away from the building they need to be, but they will reach the 10th, 11th. Well, not even with these bucket trucks, not even the 10th floor, but with the Spartan up at Station 9, it might reach the 10th floor, but 8 through 10.
And they have never been made because it's the security or is it safety?
They're just too big, too heavy.
That's what
I think it's an engineering.
That's what the building code is for. Like in New York City, they don't have ladders that reach all the tall buildings. They just have buildings that are built to be secure in the event of a fire. So with multiple exits, so you have multiple stairwells that are safe. So firefighters run up stairwells in those cases.
A ladder vehicle that big wouldn't be able to move. It would, it wouldn't get through the city.
I have a little bit of feedback on the chart, because I think when you guys give us this stuff, it's helpful, but the way I think it could be more helpful, things like if there were row labels, so it's like 1 through 16 instead of because the engine numbers repeat, so it's hard to count how many there are. Oh. And then even a title, I think if it said Syracuse Fire Department engine inventory as of date, then it makes the piece of paper easier to understand. And I would even add a couple columns, you give the date, the year it was built, but I almost think having the age, the subtraction of it's 10 years old or whatever, and then having it next to that an expected life, so that it's right there. So we say it's 10 years, and you have these other measures of, I think, that are probably variables of expected life, like engine hours or aerial hours.
Sure.
So whatever your standard is for how you define what you expect to get out of this truck, and then you could have a column that's % of life used or something like that, and you could have a targeted date of replacement, and then there could be a in capital plan or not. And it could be if it is in the capital plan, it could just be it's in the 2023 capital plan for replacement, because then it would show all the stuff, and we would have a sense of.
Sure.
Anyways, those are the things that I think would be.
Make sure next time you come to Professor Rudd's class, you have the homework done properly.
Yes.
Carney jokes, but he'll be up there talking about saving taxpayers money a minute later.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a necessity. We got to give them the trucks, and you know what? I get it. And look, if my house burns down, I'm going to be mad because we didn't buy trucks.
Carney.
Okay, next time, Councilor Hogan's house is on fire, it's just going to burn to the ground.
Oh, jeez.
Councilor Rudd.
Counselor, there's no house right now that's on fire. This is us doing the financial management.
And I
of the
understand
city.
that. I get it. But
you don't need to ring a fire alarm in the middle of our meeting talking about their capital planning.
Can we just move along, please?
And last, I just reiterate that my only point, I'm done, is just I really do think it's important that we have the needs that fall off the list articulated on here, because I do think there will be opportunities for funding in the future, and that way we're aware. And just to use a really personal example, one of the things that fell off that was in the 2021 budget are the replacement of the deputy chief's vehicles. Mm-hmm. And they're clearly not being replaced now because you're buying trucks. And those are not always the most politically popular things to buy, but yet you're deferring them further out into the future. But if you let them fall off, the people here, other than me, sitting here with multi-year books, seeing that it fell off, I recognize that you delayed it, but no one else does. So eventually when you're your trucks are falling apart, you need those vehicles replaced, we're going to be like, what do you mean? Why can't you just go 2 more years? But it's because you've already gone 4 years beyond the expected useful life. So it helps us understand your needs and how you're already being reasonable, I think.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. The main thing is that we want to make sure that first engine and truck get to the front of your house. If a deputy chief takes him an extra 30 seconds, we can work on that. But if truck 8 takes an extra 30 seconds to arrive in front of one of your houses, that is a big difference.
But it doesn't mean at some point you're not going to have to replace this vehicle,
Yes,
so
sir.
it should just still be documented. Yeah. I'm good.
I guess my question is to Commissioner of Finance. You said we will have enough money by then to not have to issue the bond earlier?
Correct. Well, when approved by the council, and this is typical with all projects, and I think the fire department explained, it takes time for the build-out of the apparatus. So your approval will allow them to begin the ordering of the equipment. We won't make payment for some time yet, and our plan will be to take the ordinances that you approve, not only for fire but even public works, and we issue bonds in the spring, May or June. We haven't decided an exact date yet. These will be included in that. So we will issue bonds, raise the cash to pay for that equipment at that time.
Okay, and the company will allow us, when we
Yeah,
put in a request, to just, for them to bill it without asking any
We
money?
pay at certain points. We have certain stages in the construction of the vehicle where we go and do an inspection. Zach, if you want to talk about that real briefly.
Sure. Basically, we keep inspecting the vehicle. When we deem the vehicle ready for final acceptance, we will issue the payment for that vehicle. So the entire time, the manufacturer knows we're going to pay for it, but they're not getting any money till the City of Syracuse is happy with the product they produced.
Excellent. Okay. Excellent.
So we don't have to pay any interest on for any?
No, there'll be this standard procedure. We've been doing this for years, not only with fire but with other departments. And I say the timing is good because, it's January, and by having this in advance. If they had come, let's say, later in the year, and we issue bonds in May, that pushes it out, and that could affect our cash flow further. So this is fine.
Okay,
Yep.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Sure.
thank you.
All good?
Okay.
One quickie before you go. Do
Sure.
you guys still have them stickers you put on the windows to identify if there's somebody in the house?
No.
Why not?
We treat every house as if someone's in the house until we prove ourselves otherwise.
Even in apartment buildings? Because I
Yep.
don't really want y'all to get to my mother.
Yep, we will.
I need a sticker.
We will get to your mother. We start at the seat of the fire, and we work our way out. And we assume that every closet has a kid in it. Every kitchen has someone hiding behind the door, and that's how we do it.
I mean, the problem that became with those stickers is as people moved and stuff like that.
They're still in there.
They
We
stayed
would
in the
start
window.
targeting the sticker and jumping through a window where we thought somebody wasn't. Long ago, there was a sticker put out there.
Okay.
Nobody was in there. So now
Makes sense.
we do a thorough search of every single room, and it does make us auger in on that sticker and maybe jump into somewhere where nobody is longer housed.
Okay.
Good.
I like my answer better.
Well, we want to thank you for coming. I think that should conclude our committee meeting. Is there anything else I need to do, Madam
Thank you for
President?
your time. Thank you for your time.
You playing your yacht tonight? You're not playing anymore, son?
That's still good for you.